I'm the son of a butcher. You might be a son of a butcher, but I'm the original butcher.
Some ask me, what is the meat industry to you? For me, it starts at a place where my family runs a grocery, butcher shop, and a catering business. And sure, it's about the business side of things. But for me, at its core, it's a story about relationships.
Come on, AJ, we got work to do.
Today we're going to talk about the difference between some of the ingredients that you're going to see in a store-bought hot dog, which would be mechanically separated chicken, dextrose, corn syrup solids, sodium lactate, sodium nitrate, and modified food starches. We're going to show you how we make it without any of those ingredients. This is going to be a no nitrate hot dog. It's going to be a clean label with just salt and some ingredients, and then using the science of the meat and understanding how we're going to hold this hot dog together. So we're going to start here. We got a half a pig, and we're going to break this down and show you where we get started. So we're going to cut here between the second and third rib, and this is going to separate the shoulder from the loin. And we're going to separate the ham from the loin muscle as well. We're going to take a little bit of an angle and we cut this, and then this is going to make our roast here. But we don't need this extra piece on our ham. So while I have this here, I want to show you too that when there's certain raw materials that you need to make a really quality hot dog. And when you're doing what we're doing, we're not adding any binders, we're using the science. So we need to have the highest quality cuts and the highest quality fat we can get. So on a pork, the highest quality fat is going to be on the top of the animal, which would be this on the loin and then the shoulder, and then towards the front of the animal. So the highest quality fat is going to be from here, and then this loin, this back fat. So we're going to take this and trim some of this fat off here so we can use it for our hot dogs. So that's some good quality fat that we're going to use for our hot dog here. And as well, some people want to take this shank meat and put that in their hot dogs. There's a lot of connective tissue in that shank meat, so you don't typically want to use too much of that into your meat block. Hot dogs has always been kind of a thing that everyone has perceived as you just put anything you want in it. Well, some people do that, and that's why you have to have binders and starches and dextrose and some sugars and stuff to help as a binding agent. But the way we do it, if you're using quality fat and you start with quality raw materials, then you don't need to use any of that stuff. With hot dogs, you're always considering, it's always a balance of ratios, of fat to lean ratios, understanding these products here. You can use the connective tissue and the muscles, you just can't make that your exclusive meat block. Okay, so we're gonna start boning out some of these pieces that we're gonna use in our hot dogs. For us right now, spare ribs hasn't been a real big seller because most people come here and want the baby back ribs. So we're gonna go ahead and put these in our hot dogs as well. So usually when we're boning meat out, we try to get all of the meat off of the top and off the bottom before we go in between the ribs. Kind of saves you going back over it again. Well, don't want to do the job twice. We'll do it once, but we don't want to do it twice. That's Dad always told me. I'll pay you to do it once, but I won't pay you to do it twice.
The first hot dog was created at the peak of the Roman Empire. Emperor Nero's cook, Gaius, mistakenly cooked a pig with the intestines still inside. The intestines swelled with air. Gaius had the genius idea to stuff the intestines with various meats, and thus, hot dog's cousin, sausage, was born.
But when you're making hot dogs, it's a finer textured product. You have to grind it several times. So to use trim and stuff like the ribs in between, that's not a real big deal as it would be as if I was trying to make a sausage where I actually want to start with a bigger whole muscle cut, and then when I grind it, just use bigger particle sizes. With a hot dog, you're always using small particle size to make it. So about any trim that you can use to put into it will be fine for making a good quality hot dog. And you can see I'm separating out the fat and the lean just so I have a better idea of what ratios I'm going to need when I'm mixing this. I'm going to have two different grinding processes. I'm going to have like a lug right here, similar to what this stuff is going to be 85% lean, 15% fat. And then my other pile that I'm going to be grinding is going to be 50% fat and 50% meat. Here's some of that leaf lard we talked about earlier. I wouldn't want to use all leaf lard for it because it's not quite the quality as you had with the back fat and some of the fat from the shoulder, but it still makes it'll still work. Like I say, everything's kind of, it's like a balance. You have to you can't do too much of one thing. So I'm going to get some of this back fat off here. Again, this is a higher quality fat that we can use. Cut that into some smaller pieces for my grinder. So right now this is be what I would consider almost 100% fat, but then I'm going to go ahead and go back in and add the lean meat to it, so that way I know I'm at 50%. My father, sometimes he likes to just eyeball things, so he'll look at something and say, "Yep, that's about 50% fat," and then I'll look at him and say, "Well, how do you know?" And then he always hits me with well, because I've been doing this for 40 years. And usually, if I go back and double check him, he's right on the money. So that's a pretty good excuse for him. Here's some of my trimmings off of the shoulder. So pork shoulders are typically somewhere around 80 to 85% lean. If you just took a whole pork shoulder and you just boned it all out and threw it in, that's about where you'd be. So being this come off of there, I'm going to say this is real close to that 85% that I'm targeting to go in there. I'm just trimming out some of the blood clots that you get some occasionally here. If you're new to doing any meat cutting or learning, you can see a lot of times I'm using the point of my knife, and I'm just kind of taking small pieces and pulling it away from the bone. A lot of times when I'm teaching guys about how to cut pigs or how to cut deer, they're trying to make big cuts in here with the middle of their knife, and I'm focusing on just using the point of my knife and being pretty precise where I'm making my cuts. Okay, so here we got the ham. I'm just going to take some of the trim off of this ham, and then we'll get this ham cured and put down. Okay, that's all we're going to trim off of that for into our hot dogs. All we got left is this shank. So out of my 100-pound meat block that I'm going to be making, you know, the shank meat is going to make up less than 5% of what's going in there. So like I said, you can use it. It does have connective tissue in it. And you can use that in your meat block, but it just can't be your whole entire meat block. And there's our fat pile. Okay, so we got our meat blocks now established here after we trimmed up those pigs. And this In this meat block here, we have, this is a 85% lean like I talked about before, and 15% fat. And then this meat block here, this is a 50-50. So this would be the pork fat and and some pork trim. People often, they think about a hot dog and they like, I want a healthier hot dog. And so I'm making as healthy and as pure of a hot dog as I can. But the reality is that to make a hot dog with the texture and the flavor and, you know, the snap when you eat it, that you need to be right around 25 to 30% fat. So while we've pulled the binders and stuff out of it, there still is quite a bit of fat in a hot dog just to keep its identity. So what we have here, once we add all of our ingredients and these 2 lugs of meat in there, then this will be, final batch will be 100 pounds total, and that's gonna get us between 700 and 800 hot dogs that we'll get out of this 100-pound batch here. So we'll talk about some of the ingredients that I'm adding. This ingredient here, this is a fruit and a spice extract that's gonna help us to retain the color, the natural color of the meat. This is gonna be in place of what nitrate or a celery powder would be. But this is a new product, and it's just using the fruit and the spice extracts. This right here, this product here is a yeast extract, and this is to help us to raise the pH of the meat, to help us to retain the water that we're going to be putting into these hot dogs. Then we have a red pepper, a ground coriander, a black pepper. We have the sugar. This is a large part of the ingredient. This is a ground mustard seed. We have a little bit of garlic, and then the main ingredient of the show here is the salt. And we'll talk a little bit more about why salt is so important. But when you're making hot dogs the way that we are, you're going to add the salt. We're going to add ice to the product, and it's actually going to drop the temperature of the meat, and it's going to start to get this protein extraction, which the protein, when you extract that protein, it's going to start to actually hold the meat together, and then you'll add their fat. So we'll get into that a little bit further on down here.
2 European cities claim to have invented what is recognized as today's hot dog. Residents of Frankfurt claim to have created the Frankfurter in 1484. Vienna claims to have created the Wienerwurst right around the same time. The debate wages on to this day.
And now we're going to head over to the grinder and do the grinding and the mixing process. So we're going to grind this 50-50 portion through first. We're just going to grind it one time, and then we're going to take the lean meat, the 85-15, and we're going to put it in, keeping it separate from the fat that we ground through first. And we're going to grind it through 3 different times. And what we're doing is we're trying to make that particle as small as you can to help with the emulsion. So while it may not make sense that we're going to keep grinding it and making it as small a particle as we can, we're actually causing more surface area for individual protein that's in the hot dog. So you would think about if you had the surface area of your fist and what that would be, and then if you took something and you took a bunch of, say, as a bunch of golf balls and stuck it there, now you're seeing you have a lot more surface area. So that's going to help with our binding process. Since we're not using a modified food starch or a binding agent, then we need to extract as much protein and have as much surface area as possible. Okay, so we're going to keep the fat separate. Now we're going to add the lean and grind this through 3 times. Okay, now we're going to add the lean meat, and then we're going to add the salt and most of the ice. And what we're doing is we're trying to extract the protein of the meat, which is going to naturally help to bind the product. So as we extract the protein of the meat, then we're gonna, after we get a good protein extraction, the meat's gonna hold together nice, and I can show you. Then we're going to add the fat, and what that fat particle is actually going to encapsulate the individual pieces of protein, and then it's going to give you a nice tight bind, and then we'll add the rest of our ingredients to the meat block. But we first want to get that good protein extraction first.
The affordable and highly portable hot dog quickly became a favorite at many sporting events, especially baseball. Legend has it that the owner of the St. Louis Browns, Chris von der Ahe, paired hot dogs with beer and sold them from his tavern.
Okay, here's the salt we're adding. Since pretty much meat preservation has come about, we've been adding salt to that. I mean, I used to add salt to meat to get it across the ocean to help to preserve it. So the salt is still the main ingredient and the main preservative in any meat products. That's why when you read an ingredient label, the first thing you have to list the ingredients as how much the most quantity that's in a product going to the lesser. And so salt is almost always salt or water are the first ingredients on that product. Okay, now we're going to begin to mix. After the salt, we added the yeast and the spice extract to help with the color. Now we're going to add some sugar in here. We're going to add the red pepper. We're going to add our fine ground black pepper. Okay, we're going to add the ground mustard seed. I'm only going to add a portion of it to make sure it blends nicely since there's so much of it. I'm going to add the coriander. And I'm going to add a little bit of our garlic. I'm going to make sure those mix up and blend nicely. So we added all of our ice. Now we're going to add a little bit of the spring water. Okay, we're going to add this yeast extract that's going to help to raise the pH, to help to hold on to all this water and ice that we're adding to it. If you think about when an animal, or the basic pH is 7, and whenever an animal goes through rigor mortis, the pH is usually around like 5.8. So we're actually trying to increase that pH back in the meat. That's going to help to hold on to the water. We're going to add the rest of the ground mustard seed. Okay, we're going to add the rest of that water. And we're going to continue to blend this until it's all nice and uniform, and then we'll grind it out that final time. Okay, everything's blended well. Now we're going to go ahead and finish grinding this product out. So the first handful I put back in because that would have been the meat that would have been trapped inside this auger part. So we want to put it back in to make sure it blends well with the rest of the meat. Okay, so we want to just verify. I can see that the meat's doing what I need it to do. The meat's starting to, just by doing this so many times, you can see the meat characteristics, how things are starting to stick together. We're still going to verify. That way, if I have an issue, I can go back and say, oh, that must have been, that was the issue. I think really when I started verifying and measuring temperatures and measuring all my ingredients, I got really adamant about it whenever I would have an issue. And then I'd have to try to ask someone to try to, like, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? And there's so many variables that I had to just start really measuring this. So got my thermometer in, measured it. I wanted to be less than 34, and I'm at 32.7 right now. And just as a feel test, we want to make sure we have a good emulsion. If without using the thermometer, I can stick my hand down in it, and I can hold it at, and that's how I know I have a good emulsion. It's going to bind, and it's just going to stick there. So now when I go to stick that in a casing for a hot dog, I know it's going to stick together, and that it's, because if you don't do all these steps correctly, I've done it in the past, and the hot dogs will fall apart if you don't follow all these steps correctly. Okay, so we're done with the grinding and the mixing process. Now we're going to take this product, we're going to put it in our stuffer, we're going to put it in a cellulose plastic casing, and we're going to link them to size. So let's go check out the next part.
Each year, Americans consume 20 billion hot dogs. That's over 350 million pounds of hot dogs.
So Bryson, now that you've been helping me do this, what's your favorite part of hot dogs? Is it making them, or is it cooking them? Or is it eating them? I guess I should have gave you another option. Taking money for cooking them. So as you can see, there's not a lot of extra room here. They built this thing nice and tight, so you're not wasting any extra airflow. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert this internal temperature probe. So as it goes through the smoke step, when it gets to the final step, then it'll go by internal temperature of the product, and then it'll shut down and go into a cooling cycle in the shower mode. Okay, so we finished the cooking cycle, and now we're in the shower cycle. So we're gently trying to bring the temperature back down. But the reason that we're doing a pulsing shower is because it's a more gentle process of dropping the temperature. My old smokehouse would just put a straight shower on it until we target a temperature we were trying to go to. And also I'm on city water, so if you just sit there and shower it like a lot, then it can actually kind of bleach it out a little bit. So we're trying to just kind of do a gentle pulse shower, slowly dropping the temperature until we target 115, and then we're going to go ahead and do a straight shower on the product. Yeah, I like the way the color turned out on them, nice and solid and firm. So we'll get the casings peeled off of them, and then we'll get them sent in the cooler, get them chilled out. I think this will work great on your grill for your hot dog stand, and then you can add your little special touch and make them gourmet.
German immigrants brought the hot dogs to the States in the 1800s. By the 1860s, hot dog carts owned by these new Americans were ubiquitous in New York City.
Son of a butcher. That's right.
folks.